What is up, YouTube? I'm Devon, DaVinci, leader of the Renaissance crew, and you can, wow. Start over again. 3, 2, 1. What is up, YouTube? I'm Devon, DaVinci, leader of the Renaissance crew, and you're watching DaVinci Reacts. Today, we're going to be getting into another Checkmate Lincolnites video. This is a video called, Was It Really a War of Northern Aggression? Now, the last video I did was his atun-shei's most recent video at the time. And that was, did the South have better generals than the North? And in that, or the way that video ended, it made it seem like that was the last Checkmate Lincolnites. Now, I've heard some people in my comment section say that that's not the case. Atun-shei said that when the Checkmate Lincolnites video ends, you'll definitely know it. So I don't know what to expect. So I'm going to go ahead and check this one out just to make sure I got all the ones so far. I think this is the only one I haven't seen. I could be wrong, but I have to check them out. But I think this is the only one left that I haven't seen. This, well, I already said it's called, Was It Really a War of Northern Aggression? No. From what I remember, the South began taking up federal properties, and they were the ones that bombed or attacked Fort Sumter first. Like, as soon as they started seceding from the Union, they immediately started taking over federal properties in their states. So I would imagine that means that they're the aggressors. But let's go ahead and see what some of these comments that the Confederate sympathizers, that's not fair. Not all of them are Confederate sympathizers, but there are definitely some Confederate sympathizers in there. Let's see what they have to say about it.
Why did the North invade the South in 1861? Was it because they hated slavery?
No, it was to save the Union.
Checkmate
Exactly.
Lincolnites!
I love how his voice gets muted.
The program where we pulverize.
That's pretty much how internet discussions work nowadays. It's like someone gets a point through and it's like everything else is just
the program where we pulverize.
I never thought I would have seen a Confederate flag and Mardi Gras beads
upon us by
in such close proximity.
Who seek to besmirch the
weird.
reputation of our great and glorious country, the Confederate States of America. Tonight, we examine the pettifoggery, hypocrisy, and tyranny of our northern brethren, the meddling Yankee. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say something just before? I simply could not hear you over the sweet sound of victory.
Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Just because abolition wasn't a primary Northern war aim doesn't change the fact that the South unequivocally seceded to preserve slavery.
Yeah.
South Carolina, for example.
South Carolina sought succession from the Union first for reasons that are debated upon.
Not really.
Debated upon. What was Lincoln's reaction? Violate constitutional law and did multiple acts of war against a state that by law should have been able to succession from the Union. In response to the actions of the president, which was tyrannical.
Dude, South Carolina seceded before Lincoln was even inaugurated.
Yeah, a lot of states seceded before Lincoln was even inaugurated. With that being said, Lincoln did do some tyrannical stuff. Didn't he suspend due process and really limited the First Amendment when it comes to publishing stories that seemed like they were sympathetic towards the Confederates? I mean, those were tyrannical acts. Now, I ain't mad at it. I ain't mad at the results, and by no means, but you got to call a spade a spade.
Jefferson Davis was sworn in as president a full 6 days before Lincoln was.
In any event, slavery was never at the forefront of the Union reason for fighting. Most Southern states and generals joined the CSA after Lincoln, without approval from Congress, raised an army of 75,000 to invade the South.
Which he did on April 15th, 1861, right after the attack on Fort Sumter.
And in so doing, he alienated the 4 states that were still holding out for a compromise in the spring of '61. The North was the only party calling for troops. As Virginia Governor Fletcher said, "You have chosen to inaugurate civil war."
So I'm guessing the South attacked Fort Sumter with Jehovah's Witnesses? I don't. Okay. I mean, I guess, if if that many people came knocking on my door with watchtowers, I probably would, surrender as well. I don't know.
The Southern
strategy,
states
maybe.
never had any intention of invading the North. We didn't need to.
Do you know what the seceded states were up to for the 4 months before Fort Sumter?
Chillin', yearning for freedom from Yankee tyranny.
Well, not quite. January 4th, 1861. Anticipating Alabama's immediate secession, Governor A.B. Moore ordered the state militia to seize federal property at Mount Vernon Arsenal, Fort Morgan, and Fort Gaines, effectively putting Mobile Bay in Confederate control. January 6th, a group of armed men barged into the federal arsenal at Apalachicola, Florida, and demanded
Get 'em!
armor. January 10th, weeks before Louisiana's secession, state militia seized the U.S. arsenal at Baton Rouge on orders.
Get 'em!
The following day, they seized Forts Jackson and St. Philip,
Get 'em!
which guarded the mouth of the Mississippi. January 13th, armed Mississippians took forcible control of the unfinished federal fort on Ship Island in the Gulf. January 24th, Georgia militia seized the Augusta Arsenal.
Get 'em!
Acting on orders from the governor, Arkansas militia volunteers seized the federal arsenal at Little Rock and escorted
Get
troops
'em!
across state March 6th, the Provisional Confederate Congress authorized President Davis to raise an army of 100,000 men for 12 months' service. April 12th, South Carolina militia fired on Fort Sumter. April 15th, President
Get
Nixon
'em!
called for 75,000 volunteers for 3 months' service to suppress the rebellion. Call me crazy, but all I see is Southern.
That's a lot of aggression.
You yellow-bellied horse thief! We raided those armories and forts because we needed weapons, and plenty of them, to facilitate our peaceful and equitable separation from the Union. Good thing we did, too, for soon after the war started, the tyrant Lincoln showed his true colors. He suspended habeas corpus illegally and jailed his political enemies without any charges. What do you call that except despotism of the highest order?
I call that pretty typical for a 19th century wartime government. Personally, I agree with you. Suspending habeas corpus during domestic emergencies is a very, very slippery slope, but it is constitutional. Article 1, Section 9 forbids the suspension of habeas corpus except in cases of invasion or rebellion.
But in 1861, Supreme Court Chief Justice Roger Taney challenged Lincoln on that
That
exact
looks like the
point,
saddest man ever.
arguing that the legislature
If
alone
Droopy was an actual
had that
person.
power, as the framers of the Constitution clearly implied, and not the president.
That's true, but initially Lincoln only suspended habeas corpus along rail lines leading to Washington, D.C. And as he pointed out in his public response to Taney, he did it to make sure that those rail lines were kept intact. Without them, Congress wouldn't be able to physically get to D.C. to convene. And by the way, when he did suspend habeas corpus for the whole country in 1863, he did it with full congressional approval.
Oh, that is just so typical of you bootlicking Yankees. You have no appreciation for personal freedom. I bet you'd vote for Palpatine. We Confederates, on the other hand, know the meaning of liberty.
Yeah.
Well, technically, the Confederates were the ones that inspired the Nazis. And the Nazis were the one that inspired George Lucas in Star Wars and modeled Palpatine's rise to power after Hitler's. So you see where I'm going with this. Yeah, what was I about to say? I was about to say something, but I forgot. It'll probably come to me, but we'll continue it.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember. It's ironic that the people in the Confederates were talking about how tyrannical Lincoln was and this, that, and the other. But a lot of the people that support or are sympathetic, I guess you could say, to Confederates are also the ones that wanted Donald Trump to come in and reclaim the country through the military after the election, or after the election didn't go their way. They wanted Donald Trump to take over with the military, and they don't see any problems with that at all. It doesn't raise any red flags of how badly it can go if a leader does a military coup on a country, because those have gone so well throughout history.
We Confederates, on the other hand, know the meaning of liberty.
Yeah, about that. The restriction of civil liberties in the Confederate States was actually way worse than it ever was up north. The Confederate Congress also suspended habeas corpus. Twice. They passed the Alien Enemies Act, which allowed the government to arrest anyone who didn't declare themselves as a loyal citizen of the Confederacy. They passed the Sequestration Act, which allowed the government to seize private property. They forbade civilian travel, prohibited the sale of liquor, and most famously instituted an extremely unpopular Conscription Act, the first such draft in American history. Again, all pretty typical actions.
Technically not American
for a
history if it was
government,
during
but
the
you don't really
CSA.
have a leg to stand on when you prop up the Confederacy as this shining beacon of freedom, especially when you take into account the tyranny that's inherent in the institution.
Well, I guess
of
we didn't
slavery.
recognize it, so
Slavery,
Still counts.
slavery, slavery. Always you with the slavery. Well, you'll be just devastated to learn that your Lord and Savior Lincoln didn't give a damn about slavery and said so. And I quote, "My paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union. If I could save the Union by not freeing any slave, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do that. And if I could save
Definitely
it
heard
by
that.
freeing some and leaving others in bondage, I would also do that. What I do about slavery and the colored race, I do because I believe it helps to save the Union."
now, I had a discussion with somebody in one of my videos, and they tried to make this point really hard about how Lincoln didn't care about freeing slaves and this, that, and the other, as if that somehow, well, I don't know if their point was that this makes the other side right or not, so I'm not going to sit here and try to frame it that way, but either way, it still doesn't matter because at the end of the day, slaves were still freed. Like, I don't care what their motivation was. The question is, which side were they on and which side ended up winning? That's all that matters to me. Like, I had another person in my comment section mention this, and I don't think they were like trying to defend it at all. Trust me, I usually know, I can pick the stuff up, but I don't believe they were. But they said something along the lines of, I have no idea what that sound was. They said something along the lines of, what was it? What was it? They said, I have to look at the comment, but you know what? I'll just have to look at the comment. I don't want to misrepresent their point or anything like that. So I'm at some point, when I do another video related to the Civil War, hopefully I will remember and we'll bring it up, but I forgot. But it was something related to a side, like the North were not fighting for slavery, and the South sometimes, like, people tend to take like certain, like, things weren't so black and white. There were certain gray things, and this is what it was. It was about the regular soldiers of the South, and not all of them were fighting to preserve slavery. Things like that. So it's wrong to demonize the entire side when not everybody was supporting that. But my point was, to me, it doesn't matter what the other side is fighting for, no matter what their reasoning is, if the overall goal of that side winning is slavery still continuing. It's a lot like the argument people try to make with World War II and the Wehrmacht, with Germany and everything, and how, like, not all Germans were Nazis, not all soldiers that fought for Germany were Nazis, which is true. But at the same time, it still doesn't matter, because had those non-Nazi supporting soldiers still won, the Nazi agenda would have still been pushed through. So while I won't attack them specifically, well, actually, that one's a lot tougher. See, the Civil War is different, because if you chose not to fight for the Confederates, at least your family still could live and stuff. Whereas with the Nazis, if you chose not to fight for them, it's very likely they would have punished not just you, but your family in some way. So that's a bit more gray area-ish. But with the Civil War, it's a wrap. Like, you could choose to side with your state, or you could choose to side for the federal government. You know your state is fighting on a side that preserves slavery. You know the federal government is not. So at some point, you should have been able to put your foot down and been like, hey, I'm not fighting to preserve slavery. If you thought slavery's not really that big of a deal, I'm still going to support my state, then as far as I'm concerned, it's still legal. I'm sorry. Any point throughout history, you should have known that owning a person is wrong. Period. Like there are things like right now, like when it comes to civil rights for like gay people, for example, LGBT. I knew from day one that I'm not trying to, you know, brag, I guess, but I was about to say like I knew from day one that they deserve the right to everything that the average American deserves, whether it's to get married, whether it's to, you know, live your life however you want to live it, to be able to whatever. Like I've always known like, okay, yeah, they should be able to do that. So it doesn't matter. Like if I was fighting a war and my side was in support of like keeping them at a certain level, I'm not joining that side. Period. It could be anything else. Like one of the reasons why I never wanted to like get into the military when I became of age, even though I did want to join the military at one point, but once I became of age, the reason I didn't want to do it is because I knew that the wars that were happening over there were bullshit. Like I wasn't about to go to Iraq and fight for some stupid cause. Like if it was something like World War II, fine, I will absolutely sign up for that. But when it comes to like the Iraq war that I knew was started based on crap, I'm not going to join it because I know that it's just going to lead to more people in that region being harmed unnecessarily over a selfish reason. I don't have to wait 100 years to see that that's wrong. Like, you should know from day one that's wrong.
Ah, yes, the quote from the Greeley letter.
Now, I'm not hating people that did do it.
Completely out of context.
That one's a little more
Lincoln
great too.
Lincoln wrote that as a public response to an editorial.
Let me go back a bit.
The quote from the Greeley letter. Trouble is, you've taken it completely out of context. Lincoln wrote that as a public response to an editorial in the New York Tribune that criticized him for not taking more decisive action against slavery. It's worth noting that when Lincoln wrote that response, he actually had a draft of the Emancipation Proclamation already written and was just waiting for an opportunity to put it into effect. And of course he emphasized saving the Union. Most of the North was intensely racist during the Civil War, and as president, Lincoln
was
had
still
to placate
racist,
both
though.
white supremacists and ardent abolitionists. That was Lincoln's constant struggle throughout his presidency. The purpose of that letter was to soften public opinion. Lincoln was emphasizing that he would put the immediate needs of the nation over his own personal preferences, and his preference was ending slavery for good. I notice you didn't include the concluding remarks that Lincoln made in that same letter.
I have here stated my purpose according to my view of official duty, and I intend no modification of my oft-expressed personal wish that all men everywhere could be free.
Though Lincoln personally abhorred slavery, he initially refused to infringe on slaveholders' constitutionally guaranteed property rights. Ending slavery was not his top or most immediate priority during the war, but it was a priority. In 1862, he repeatedly reached out to the border states to try to get them to favor
I don't think he's officially in there
and lest we
just
forget,
yet. He's
it was
like
Lincoln's
right on the
staunch
bridge right here.
opposition to expansion of slavery of any kind into the territories that caused the secession crisis in the first place.
So your master may not have been pro-slavery per se, but he was still a filthy racist.
Yeah.
As he once said, I, as much as any other man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race.
But again, I don't really see the point of bringing up his white supremacist tendencies if it's still, like, if he still supported free slaves. Like, I get the point, you're trying to attack him morally, which you can do all day, but it doesn't change the results. Like, oh, he was a racist, therefore slavery still goes through. Like, I don't get the point of it. It's like when people try to bring up like Martin Luther King's infidelity, try to discredit his civil rights movement. Like, okay, what does that equal though? It has nothing to do with this purpose exactly. Also, I want to say this before I continue. When I was talking about the Iraq War, for the people that actually like did go out there and fight and things like that, nothing against you. It's just my problem with the U.S. government sometimes with some of the things they do. There are people that chose to do that and fight, and a lot of them that did perfectly good things. Like they didn't, go out of their way to try to attack civilians and things like that. But there were situations where civilians got killed. Fact is, if we weren't there, I think we wouldn't have, obviously, now that we have drones, I don't know shit. But yeah, I just wanted to say that before anybody, because I was going to say it at the end of the video, but I didn't want people clicking off the video before then and leaving with that idea. But yeah.
Yes, he said that in the fourth debate with Stephen Douglas on September 18th, 1858. Remember, every 19th century politician had to contend with a voting base made up largely of white supremacists. Lincoln was trying to quell some potentially catastrophic rumors that he was in favor of amalgamation, or the mixing of the races. If it got out that he was in favor...
All right, I understand that point, but he was still talking like white supremacists after everything was said and done. Like, didn't he also try to push for black people to be sent back to Africa? Am I wrong about that? Did it happen early? I could have sworn like after everything was already rolling, he was still talking about how he believed that blacks and whites would never be able to mix together in this country, and black people would have a hard time pretty much picking up the basics of being a regular citizen. Wasn't that what Lincoln was talking about at one point? I could be wrong about
supremacists.
When
Lincoln was trying to quell some potentially catastrophic rumors that he was in favor of amalgamation, or the mixing of the races. If it got out that he was in favor of equal rights, he wouldn't get elected to anything in America.
But you have no real evidence confirming he believed anything different.
You're right, but it's kind of ironic. You have to admit that you Confederates, who are normally so suspicious of Lincoln and of the federal government, are just willing to take the president's word on this.
Wish you'd just shut up.
It's like you just dredge up these quotes without taking even a little bit of time to research or comprehend their contexts.
That's how arguing on the internet works. Context does not exist when it comes to internet arguments. Like, that's the reason why we have so many people that are misinformed, because they'll read a headline. And nowadays on the internet, it's funny because headlines will have the exact opposite of what is in the body of the article. Like I saw this one video that was going over I forgot what it was called. It was going over pretty much just like bullshit things on the internet. Like it was like an I am an asshole post or something similar to that. And it had a article from this internet website, and the headline said something like it said, what was the game? Something 6. Elder Scrolls 6. It said Elder Scrolls 6 release date been revealed. And then when it went into the article, it literally said, so far Elder Scrolls 6 hasn't had a release date revealed yet, and then it started just talking about just the game itself. So it's like, if you read the headline, you'll think, oh, they announced the release date for Elder Scrolls 6. But then when you go into the actual body of the article, it's like, no, that was complete 100% bullshit.
Shut up.
It's like you just dredge up these quotes without taking even a little bit of time to research or comprehend their contexts. Both are clear examples of political grandstanding. Politicians lie. They exaggerate. They try to appeal to as many people as possible. Progressive politicians in particular lie about how committed they are to progressive ideas all the time.
Again, very true.
I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman.
I do not support gay marriage, but I support a very strong version of civil unions.
This ruling will strengthen all of our communities.
A very strong sense of civil unions. That's hilarious. But yeah, Barack Obama is somebody that pisses me off so bad. Like, so much potential, and then like just the tip. He's the one that I already said that Michael Jackson was the one that made me into a skeptic when it comes to like researching and studying and things like. Barack Obama was the one that showed me to invest in politicians' backgrounds. Don't listen to a damn thing they say on the campaign trail, because they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. If you want to know what a politician's true intentions are, go and look up their voting history if they happen to have been in a part of Congress. Look at who donates money to them, and look at what they were saying before they started running for president. That is where you get the true idea of what a politician is, because they'll tell you whatever you want to hear if you listen to them on the campaign trail. That's the reason why I'm skeptical of Joe Biden. That's the reason why I was skeptical of Hillary Clinton. Like, all of them. There's a website I go to called votesmart.org, I believe it is, .org. And it'll pretty much give you all the information on where politicians stand on certain positions. It'll give you information on where they get their money donated from, their voting history, everything I mentioned. That's where I get my information from. They're not sponsoring me in any way. I'm just telling you that because we need more people to do background checks on these politicians. Because I'm tired of listening to people get mad over the government not working in the way you want it to, but you fail to research these politicians who, if you did any research, would know they're not going to do your interest anyway. Maybe if we research people and send people up there that actually, believes the stuff they're saying, maybe some shit would get done.
Gay marriage, but I support a very strong.
And if that politician doesn't exist, you be the politician. Go out and run for that
by offering
office.
to all loving same-sex couples the dignity of marriage across this
I'll
great
probably rant about
Just
it more
because
after the video's
Obama
over.
lied about the gays does not mean that Lincoln lied about the blacks.
Fair enough.
Many free staters wanted their territories to be whites-only havens. Oops, not supposed to talk about that.
Yes, and speaking of Lincoln, throughout much of his political career, he was in favor of colonization, which would have entailed freeing American slaves and then sending them off to a colony in Africa.
Yeah.
Which,
Liberia.
yeah, yeesh. It was a proposed solution to the main argument against abolition at the time, which was that it would be impossible to integrate blacks into American society.
Yeah.
And that's horrifying.
But
At the time, that was a very anti-slavery position. Now, we can argue about whether to judge Lincoln by the standards of racism in the 19th century or the standards of racism today. But the fact that he consistently fought against slavery is beyond dispute.
so what if he did? It doesn't change the fact that after the Emancipation Proclamation made freeing the slaves a war aim, average Yankee soldiers deserted in the thousands.
And that forced the United States to pass a conscription act of their own, which famously led to the New York City draft riots, one of the ugliest episodes in Civil War history. But focusing purely on the undeniable white supremacy of Northerners during the war diminishes the significance of the sizable minority of abolitionists in the North.
That's also another point that I want to quickly talk about. It's funny how nowadays we tend to shit on not just the South, but also people that were in the North that were clearly still racist, but they weren't all the way over to slavery, but they still had white supremacy. And it's funny how people also try to point the finger at oh, well, look at them, they were immoral too. But then when you turn the mirror around and you look at yourself, here you are, a person that supposedly hates slavery, but you're doing the exact same thing people in the North did. You're buying all your products from these countries that have slave labor or extremely cheap labor. Let's say something that you wouldn't support if you actually saw it face to face. And you're judging these people on their standards and ideas and stuff, but then here you are with all your products that came from slave countries or countries where the workers don't have any rights or any type of protections, and you buying into it keeps those systems running, but it doesn't seem to bother you because you don't actually see it. It's somewhere else. Now, I'm not judging because I've bought those products too, but maybe we should stop judging people in the past when we're still doing stuff. Maybe we should look for ways to not just stop ourselves from participating in that, but trying to get rid of those systems altogether, slavery still exists in today's world.
Now, it's important to differentiate here between an anti-slavery position and an abolitionist one. Most Northerners before the war were anti-slavery, but they either wanted to contain it and allow it to go extinct on its own, or they wanted to gradually free the slaves with compensation to slave owners. Abolitionists took it a step further. They wanted to see the immediate, unconditional emancipation of all black Americans. New England was the hotbed of abolition at the time and was home to its most famous and influential advocates. When John Brown's raid failed in 1859, most Northerners viewed him as a lunatic, a total psycho. But abolitionists like Henry David Thoreau successfully changed public opinion, and pretty soon Brown was being regarded as a martyr and a hero. It's in the song, right? John Brown's body lies moldering in the grave. John
Really don't
Brown's
have to give
body
us a
lies
performance,
moldering
Billy
in
Yank.
the grave. John Brown's body lies moldering in the
must
grave,
insist.
but his
Stop
soul
with him.
goes
That damn
marching
noise.
on.
You know what I love about this song? America, in a funny way, has made like their stance officially behind this, showing how much they support John Brown by turning that into like an official song, but they changed the lyrics around so people don't like it's not directly addressing him, but the tune, the dun 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 dun. I forgot the name of the song itself, but what was it? I think it's Glory. No, it's not Glory, Glory, Hallelujah, is it? It's something like that, but it's a song that the melody comes from this song. So they took that and pretty much made it an American like folk song. And you have everybody, including Southern states, singing it. I love it.
Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Shut up.
Glory,
Stop
glory,
singing. Stop that damn noise.
hallelujah.
Stop that damn noise.
Glory, hallelujah. And his soul goes marching on. By the end of the war, many Union soldiers did consider their cause to be abolitionist. This was mainly because of the large number of contraband slaves that would follow Union armies wherever they went. And these Yankee boys, many of whom had never been to the South in their lives, were being confronted by the horrifying realities of slavery for the very first time. This hardened their hearts against that institution, and they said as much in their diaries and letters. Higher up, the logistical problems caused by this large number of escaped slaves forced commanders and politicians to take the idea of immediate abolitionism more seriously.
Like I was talking about earlier with the products that come from countries that pretty much have slavery or extremely low income. If people actually like went over and saw what was going on, I guarantee they'd be just as motivated. Like they might say it, but it doesn't impact their life too much. So it's like, well, we wanted to stop, but in a certain way that doesn't impact our lives. If people actually went over and saw the conditions people worked in and like witnessed it face to face, then they'd probably become much stronger advocates.
So by mid-war, freeing the slaves wasn't just a moral imperative, it was also a practical necessity.
Well, you Yankees are just uncultured and basically miserable. That's the main difference between us.
That username and that
As our
profile pic.
glorious president Jefferson Davis once said in a speech at the Mississippi State Capitol.
Our enemies are a traditionalist and a homeless race. From the time of Cromwell to the present moment, they have been disturbers of the peace of the world. Gathered together by Cromwell from the bogs and fens of the north of Ireland and of England, they commenced by disturbing the peace of their own country. They disturbed Holland, to which they fled, and they disturbed England upon their return. They persecuted Catholics in England, and they hung Quakers and witches in America.
And clearly, the apple does not fall far from the tree.
Is he talking about the Cromwell that was again, I don't know the full history, so you can correct me, but isn't he the one that's like partially responsible for the Irish famine? Is that the Cromwell he's talking about?
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Thou art an unlearned swine if thou dost truly believe that papists, Quakers, and witches ought to be shown mercy. But religious freedom is one of the founding principles. The devil's tongue wags in thy mouth. Those who love the Lord must needs separate themselves entirely from the professors of heathen faiths. You
I
know,
can barely understand what the hell he's saying.
that's not a bad point. Mixed communities are a disaster. Usually it's just one community getting to the top anyway. Communities are better kept separate.
These
or at
profile
least
pics.
totally homogeneous.
Oh, just so.
That way they can preserve their race, identity, and culture. If you ever noticed, mixed communities look just like New York City and have no identity.
Yeah, one mixed races or mixed communities look like New York City, you know, one of the biggest cities in the world. You know, one of the most profitable cities in the world. The city that most people, when they think of America, tend to think of. You know, the shiny example of America.
Bastardizing anything unique.
Oh, hell.
Devon.
Oh, hell. One did evolve into the other, so
You have brought me to the Valley of Izian, where I live in the depths but see it.
if this was Pokemon, Confederate-ite would evolve into Nazi sword. That's all I'm saying.
Yikes. Ending by mountains of sin, we behold your glory. You have no power here, which finds a children.
What the hell is that? Bible?
I will draw thee out, Satan, as poison is drawn from a wand.
If I go, Johnny Rip dies.
Thou hast not killed me.
Is that Ready
Thou
Whip?
shalt not kill
The
him.
superior whipped cream? That's what's up.
South is mine.
Be gone, thought.
My work here is done.
Okay, what happened? Hey man, are you okay?
You fucking stupid to compare a Nazi to a Confederate. That's Yankee propaganda teaching you more lies.
Good to have you back, buddy.
Southerns treated African American maybe better in some cases. I know they were bad treated, but you think U.S. Grant treated them better them days. LMAO.
I'm just waiting for a rebel yell. Rebel yell. That was perfect. Yeah, a lot of points in here. A lot of topics that I can grab onto and talk about. Like I said, Confederates directly have a line to Nazis for the most part. When it comes to the politicians, that's right. I want to talk about these politicians. Oh my goodness. In communities, especially the Black community, I'm going to talk to us specifically. I am so sick and tired of seeing people talk about how the government doesn't do anything and how it, like, a lot of times people are trying to use this as an excuse to not vote, because it's like, why vote if nobody is going to do anything about it? Like, no matter what politicians promise us, they don't do what we want. So why should we vote? Here's an idea. Stop listening to politicians on the campaign trail, because whenever it comes time for an election or something, usually some politician is going to come and start catering to the Black vote, and hey, I keep hot sauce in my purse, and you know, hey, check this out, I'm going to play this song by this hip hop artist that you enjoy, or hey, one of the hot Billboard 100 artists is going to appear at my rally, and they're going to talk about how great I am. Don't that, make me one of you guys? Don't that make me down with the cause? Like, no, it doesn't. They're going to do stuff to cater. Period. Here's what you should do. Look up somebody that has been behind your Black causes from the beginning or before they needed your vote. Look for someone that's already made it in, and then they're trying to push things through. And when I say trying to push things through, I mean actually trying to push things through. People that actually created bills or, try to go to Congress and talk to people to get some stuff pushed, something legitimate. Otherwise, the same thing's going to keep happening. You're going to hear a politician talk about all the sweet things that you want to hear. And then when it comes, like after you voted for them and they get elected, they're not going to do a damn thing. And you're going to be sitting here wondering what happened. How come they're not helping us? The point is, go for a politician that has been doing it from day one. And if you feel, and this goes for anybody, if you feel that a politician is not representing your points, then either run yourself or find somebody that has your points that you can get behind and ask them to run. You do not have to have some type of credentials or some requirement to run for office of any kind. Get up and run if you feel like nobody is doing what you want and you really feel like this is that important. Get up and run. If the politician that you want don't exist, become that politician. You'll never know. Maybe you'll get the attention of people that think just like you, that have lost faith in the political system, that will vote for you because it's like, oh, this person is speaking to me. If you feel your positions are that popular, maybe it'll be an eye-opening experience. Maybe you'll see just how many people really support what you believe, or maybe it'll be the opposite. Maybe you'll run and realize just how isolated you are with your beliefs. Like, damn, nobody thinks this is a good thing. But either way, like it killed me when I hear people talk about like, oh, don't vote. It's a waste of time and this, that, and the other. It's like, no, it's only a waste of time when you constantly vote for people that don't have your interest to begin with. Like I said, either run yourself or do some background research into a politician and see, okay, this politician does what I want them to do, or okay, this politician is lying out of their teeth and isn't going to do anything that I want them to do. But the bottom line is you'll be more informed. Like, do research into your politicians, and also stop voting during just presidential elections, because some of the lesser elections in between the presidential runs, those tend to be the ones that direct your life directly. When we're talking about the elections that have to vote in police chiefs and judges and like just the smaller people that you have to deal with directly, because believe it or not, you're not going to be impacted by what the president does a lot of times. For the most part, you're going to be impacted by what the mayor and the governor and like I said, the police chiefs and the judges and things like that. You're going to have to deal with them. And also make sure you know who your representative in Congress is. Not just the senator or whatever, but also the person that happens to be the representative for your specific region of the state. Like, do research. Be sure to be in those middle votes too, because a lot of times certain policies will be on the table that are up for vote. And if you're not there, something's going to get passed and it might impact you directly. You might not even know it. Those are the times when you would deal with that. There's a lot of situations where people need to get more active. And I don't know, it's like, well, I've already told you, I'm never running for politician. I'm never running in politics because I have no faith in humanity. Like, I have none. Like, even causes that I think are okay, I still have no faith in them. Like the Black Lives Matter movement, not the organization, the movement. And I'll explain why not the organization right now. when the cause first starts, especially with like the Black Lives Matter movement, I'm behind it because, you know, getting out there and marching and things like that is the right step at first. It's the right initial step. But at some point, you have to move to phase 2. You can't just keep marching. Marching is how you draw awareness to a situation. The problem is the Colin Kaepernick knee situation already drew awareness. The marching after that, okay, that drew more awareness. But at some point, you have to get to phase 2, which is going to Congress or going to some type of government body and getting some bills presented, getting some laws passed, something. You can't just keep marching. Marching don't mean shit. Like, the reason the civil rights movement was effective was because Martin Luther King was right there with John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson getting legislation through. Like, the civil rights bills of 1984 and 1964 and 1968, like the Voting Rights Act, like he was getting stuff through. The movements we have today don't really do shit. Like, they march and then it stops, and it's like, yeah, it just isn't going to work. I just know it. And also, like I said, well, I've said this to other people before. You need a leader that is squeaky clean. I don't like, yeah, should it matter? No, but the fact of the matter is, if you have a cause that people are looking for any reason to sling mud on, you need someone that is squeaky clean with no background situations whatsoever. And you need a movement that's willing to sacrifice, because there are going to be some situations where some people may be attacked, some people may be hurt and things like that, but you got to have people constantly ready to move forward and keep fighting for the cause, even if it means they can potentially be putting their life on the line. You can't ever have it devolve in a point where it's like, okay, well, we're just about to start, just retaliating and this, that, because as soon as you do that, you lose what I like to call the silent majority, the people at home that you need in order to support this movement. Because if you're just if you're a niche group or a minority group, it doesn't matter. You have to impact the everyday person's life. Once you do that, that's when outrage gets to the point where it's like, okay, we have to do something about this. Once you start getting into the point where you're like, you lose that moral high ground, kind of like with the riots and stuff that happened during the Black Lives Matter movement, you start to put doubt in people's minds when it comes to supporting it. And once that happens, then you just illegitimize your entire movement. Like, you have to, like I said, you have to have the first person that's the leader willing to make sacrifices and keep moving forward. But you need that second person in line in case something happens to that first person. That second person has to be just as willing to continue to push the movement the way that it started. You have to stay focused and you have to keep moving forward. But I don't have faith that will happen. I don't have faith that would happen in this situation or any other situation. I feel like people are just too quick to fall into like emotions and stuff, and that whole keeping it real goes wrong situation. That's what happens. People start, they start letting themselves become vulnerable and do things that they know they shouldn't do, but they feel they're justified because they're upset or because they feel a certain type of way. And it never fixes it. It makes it worse, but they feel like they're justified in doing it because they're upset or something. And it's like, okay, well, you just fucked everything up. So I hope it made you feel better. I just don't have enough faith, you guys. I just don't. I'm sorry. But I hope you enjoyed this video. And like I said, what I just mentioned goes for everything as well. I use that movement example because that's something that I can directly like connect my mind to like why I think that way. But that goes for a bunch of other stuff as well. It can go for anything. If it's like any type of movement that impacts you, the politician I talked about, that can go for any politician, for any type of policy that you believe in, whether it's for civil rights, for groups that you feel aren't on the same aren't all on the same fair level, whether it's for the Medicare for all argument, or whether it's for taxes, whether it's for anything, any policy whatsoever. If you feel that a politician isn't doing what you feel they need to be doing, then like I said, research into a different politician that has been pushing for your cause before they needed your vote. Or if you feel like there's nobody out there that represents you, then maybe you need to be the one to get up and run. Maybe if you get out and run and people will see that somebody with those positions are running, maybe it'll inspire more people to be in favor of that. You can have your opinions about Bernie Sanders however you want, but you can't deny that when Bernie Sanders ran, after he was done, a lot of politicians started to adapt some of his ideas and policies. Now, a lot of them probably just did it just to gain some support, but fact of the matter is, he motivated a lot of people to grab some of his ideas. Same thing be said for Trump. After Trump got done running, a lot of politicians adapted Trump's policies and stuff like that. A lot of people that didn't originally believe that, or didn't at least come out and say they believe that, after Trump ran, it kind of changed the demographic of the politicians that were running. So maybe you might be the only person saying what you're saying, but if it's something that's popular and it catches on, it might motivate other people to start to pick up those policies that you felt originally that nobody supported. Now, all of a sudden, all these politicians are coming out supporting it because they saw they saw how popular the position was, and they've adapted into their own thing. Just keep moving forward. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share. These damn atun-shei videos be making my videos long. This is only a 17-minute video I was reacting to. This is about to be an hour-long video. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for coming through. I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say in the comment sections. Until then, I'm Devon DaVinci, signing out and giving you the deuces. Hopefully been enlightened. I don't know. Maybe not. I've just been giving you my opinions. If you agree with them, that's cool. If you don't agree with them, that's cool as well. If you feel like I said something wrong, feel free to go in the comment section and let me know, because I have no problems admitting that I was wrong on something. And if you feel like you want to change my opinion on something, that can possibly happen too. If you can convince me, I am okay enough to say you're right, and I will change my opinion on it. But anyway, I'm going to give you the deuces, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.